Bent paper clips and beige goo can get your sex doll back in working order. There's a do-it-yourself guide to waking up comatose Furbies. And major companies from Apple to John Deere are deeply committed to letting you repair the products you own. Hi, I'm Greg. The $60 Real Doll Repair Kit lets you glue Tanya back together because things will happen. The Instructables Guide to Restoring a Vegetative Robot prepares your pet for going under the knife. And unfortunately, major companies are trying their best to fight your right to repair because it infringes on their right to sell you broken shit. Americans spend over $1,400 a year on new electronics, including appliances, cell phones, and other consumer devices like this TSA-approved motorized luggage that turns JFK Terminal 1 into a Jim Cramer-themed Fast and Furious spinoff. That's because taking broken stuff to the nearest geek, genius, or other guy with glasses for a quick fix isn't always cheap. One study found that 70% of people think that fixing a broken smartphone screen costs less than $150, but in reality, that average repair costs $170. Your reaction to the notification that you'll never be verified despite being a high-quality Dax Shepard knockoff just cost you an extra $20. The urge to upgrade to the latest iPhone or tricked-out American Tourister also generates a tremendous amount of electronic waste. In 2019 alone, the world discarded 53.6 million metric tons of e-waste, or the equivalent of 350 cruise ships, the standard unit of measurement of pure concentrated trash. But e-waste isn't just wasteful in a let's save the earth because I've got Bonnaroo tickets kind of way. It's also in an incredibly stupid and expensive way. The UN estimates that 7% of the world's gold is contained in electronic waste, explaining all those prospectors panning around the dump. According to the US Public Interest Research Group, Americans waste $40 billion a year by throwing away entire products that could continue to function just fine with a simple repair. It's also worth mentioning that nearly 15% of people on the dating market would think twice about going out with someone with a cracked cell phone screen, so be very careful when you're swiping right. While you may wish you could tinker with your telephone, companies like Apple are highly skilled at building beautiful products that give the average person no chance of repairing. That's why Foundation is such a great fit for its streaming service. It looks really cool, but give it 2 episodes and it's clear that something is very off and desperately needs to be fixed. But if your own enterprising mind wants to perform your own inpatient iPad surgery, you're going to run into a series of repair roadblocks that turns the simple act of changing a dead battery into a drawn-out game of mill-born. For those who aren't familiar, that's the high-octane French car racing card game where drivers obey speed limits, change flat tires, and run out of gasoline. It's a lot of fun. To get the green light, you'll probably need to first get your hands on a service manual to understand how to fix your product. But finding these aren't always easy. The Electronic Frontier Foundation refers to this as manual lockdown, in which a manufacturer either refuses to publish service manuals or threatens to sue those who provided access to them for copyright infringement. That's what happened in 2012, when Toshiba's lawyers threatened the Tim behind Tim's Laptop Service Manuals for linking to Toshiba's laptop service manuals, forcing him to remove the contents and likely pivot to other Tim-related interests like iced coffee, boots, and caveman grunts. But let's say you do get your hands on an official repair manual, or at least an unofficial crowdsourced do-it-yourself guide to fixing your surgical slush machine. Just because you can get inside of a product doesn't mean that it's going to be possible to repair. On iFixit's repairability scale, Microsoft's 2017 Surface laptop received a Washington Generals grade 0 out of 10 score. Not only are its components non-upgradable and potentially dangerous to replace, there's no way to take it apart without destroying it.
Repairman, man.
If you're still willing to take that risk, good luck trying to use your Phillips or flathead screwdriver. To make it harder to disassemble products, manufacturers have adopted an entire bowlful of proprietary, magically delicious screw shapes like squares, pentagons, stars, hearts, clovers, blue moons, pots of gold, rainbows, and red balloons. And even when you're lucky and charming enough to make it into the insides of, say, practically any MacBook released over the past 5 years, internal components like the keyboard, battery, and speakers are drenched in so much impossible to remove glue, you start to understand why Tim Cook worked so hard to build that supply chain pipeline directly to Shenzhen from the loser circle at the Kentucky Derby. If you're somehow able to remove that thick layer of Seabiscuit from your laptop, who knows where you'll find the replacement components that you need. As noted by the FTC, manufacturers intentionally make it difficult or impossible to obtain spare parts. But even if you've scanned the documentation and possess the tools and parts necessary to carry out a self-repair, companies want to scare you into thinking you're terminating your product's warranty. If you've ever leaped through the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act of 1975 because you had nothing better to do, you'll know that companies aren't allowed to mandate that consumers use brand-specified parts or services in order to keep their warranties intact. That's why in 2018, the FTC cracked down on those tamper-resistant, warranty void if removed stickers. Turns out they were illegal, and you were perfectly within your rights to try to keep your PS4 from turning into Joe's apartment. But as of 2021, major companies are still lying to consumers by warning them that fixing products themselves will void their warranty. Whirlpool, LG, Bosch, even Mr. Coffee, the J.D. Salinger of percolators, who to this day has never been photographed in public. Companies across the spectrum have lobbied against the right to repair for all sorts of reasons. One reasonable argument against the right to repair is safety. These things are filled with chemicals and complicated components that can catch fire, explode, or in a worst-case scenario, mark a message you were ignoring as red. But that's why having access to parts and instructions for carrying out DIY repairs is so important, so you don't inadvertently turn your automatic recliner into an electric chair. Another argument companies like Microsoft make is that unauthorized repairs can pose a threat to the security of their devices, and you should only rely on authorized professionals. From the Apple Store to the Verizon Store, rest assured that your device will be in the hands of world-class contractors with advanced technical knowledge of how to best text copies of your private nude photos from your phone to themselves. See, even if your authorized technicians aren't the ones tracking down dick pics in an Easter egg hunt, kind of like those ones that gave all those bunnies Legionnaire's disease, that still doesn't mean they're actually better at fixing your shit. Take the survey that found that 67% of medical device repair professionals were able to fix devices that the manufacturer themselves weren't able to do. That's one of the many reasons disability activists testified before the Colorado State Legislature in favor of the right to repair, sharing stories of everything from a wheelchair's warranty being voided after a handyman repaired a loose wire, to another wheelchair catching fire after an authorized technician incorrectly installed a battery. One guy with restricted mobility said it took an electric wheelchair company 60 days to inspect, authorize, and get parts for a repair that would have taken him and his family 2 days to carry out. I've seen people in the Apple Store lose their shit over a camera replacement taking an afternoon. I can't imagine the frustration of having to wait 2 months to keep your wheelchair from bursting into flames like a prop in some sort of Stephen Hawking Michael Bay biopic. But the fix is truly in when it comes to software, or specifically, software license agreements that prevent independent repair shops or owners from tweaking how their equipment works. When mechanical equipment like a McDonald's ice cream machine or a John Deere tractor stop working, they generate secret diagnostic repair codes that can only be decrypted by a professional that's jacked into the small business matrix. That's why, to avoid expensive repair bills, fast food franchises buy ice cream machine hacking hardware to determine whether Ronald McDonald's cream is too viscous or just right. And farmers load Ukrainian firmware into their combines to help them pick up the pace, in case little green men somehow make the jump from Kiev to Des Moines. Again, they say it's under the guise of safety, but in reality, it's a repair racket aimed squarely at the dollar menu. In John Deere's case, according to Bloomberg, parts and services at dealerships are 3 to 6 times more profitable than the sales of original equipment. It's like that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it's broken, gouge the shit out of the poor bastard. The right to repair movement appears to be heading in the right direction. In 2021, France enacted a rule requiring manufacturers to grade a product's repairability on a scale of ha to ha ha ha. President Biden directed the FTC to draft new self-repair rules, and more than half of all U.S. states have since introduced or moved forward with repair legislation. Even manufacturers appear to be changing their tune, albeit slightly off-key. Apple announced that it'll be providing repair parts and service manuals starting in 2022. But as noted by right to repair advocate Kyle Wines, it looks as though they're still going to place artificial restrictions on which parts you're allowed to use for a repair. But don't worry. If you're not cool with that, they'll still happily fix your out-of-warranty iPad for more than half the price of buying a new one. In 2018, John Deere made agreements with trade groups to make private repairs easier, and maintains that farmers and independent mechanics can make 98% of repairs themselves. But as of 2021, reports demonstrate that they don't appear to be holding up their end of the bargain, and they're blowing off questions from their own shareholders as they try to carve out some sort of repair exemption through the SEC. But don't worry, if you're not cool with that, you can still happily purchase a 3-decades-old tractor at an auction that doesn't connect to the internet. Even McDonald's is under investigation by the FTC for its broken ice cream machines. But don't worry, if the machine is still down when you get there, you can still buy 7 donuts to lock in that stomachache. As foretold by Mayan prophecy in 2012, Massachusetts passed a law that required the auto industry to grant owners and independent mechanics access to the same diagnostic and repair software that they gave to their dealers. While this legislation didn't make you qualified to host Top Gear overnight, it gave you or a local repair shop a fair shot at fixing something that you owned on your own, without Lee Iacocca's ghost swinging by for some blessed autoerotic prima nocta. Now, this narrow law only applies to the auto industry in Massachusetts, but it served as an example for other legislation that gives people permission to ruin their own stuff if they so choose. Because that's the thing here. Printers shouldn't be disposable as Kleenex, and when they inevitably break down after having made the boneheaded mistake of trying to load it with paper, you should be able to fix it for a cheaper price than buying an entirely new printer. Because, you know, things will happen. Hi, I'm Greg. Oh, I just saw a squirrel climb. I just saw a squirrel climb up. I saw like a little squirrel shadow.
Go up?
I saw a squirrel climb up. I saw like the outline of a squirrel and it's like a furry little tail.